ओम पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते. So welcome to our Saturday morning session. We shall continue on our journey of Ishavasya Upanishad. In the last session, we examined the preamble and the first mantra of this Upanishad. Now, first mantra of this Upanishad is one of the key mantras in entire Upanishadic literature. I believe that Mahatma Gandhi mentioned once that if we have to put the core message of Upanishads, this mantra conveys it in the best possible way. So, in this mantra, we saw that Isavasyamidam Sarvam, that the Supreme Lord is in existence everywhere. He is pervading the entire universe. He is there in everything. Whether the living being, non-living being, whatever exists in this universe, the Supreme Lord is pervading all that. And then we should live a life which gives you happiness, but no attachment, not misusing the resources, because these resources do not belong to us. So this is the core message of what we call Gyan Marg, that live in this world, always think of the Supreme Lord who is pervading the entire universe. Use the resources to make your life comfortable, but do not attach with those resources and do not misuse those resources because they do not belong to you. So the life of austerity, the life of minimum consumption, the life where we live in harmony with nature has been prescribed in this message. So this message also takes care of environmental issues, also takes care of, detachment from the resources, but at the same time allows us to consume the resources to make our life comfortable. So this is very, very important. Now, the second mantra, which follows this mantra, is the mantra of karma nistha, that how we should do. The first one is the Gyan Marg. Gyan is very important. The second one, which we now will examine, is the Karma Marg or Karma Nistha. Kurvanyeva karmani jiji vishishama sama tayam tayati nanyasto asti na karm lipate nare. One may aspire to live for hundreds of years if he continuously goes on working in that way. For that sort of work will not bind him to the law of karma. There is no alternative to this for human beings. Now, this sutra is containing many keywords, and we should analyze each one of them carefully. Living for 100 years, we should aspire to live for 100 years. Now, what does it mean? That we should not get disenchanted with life. We should live life with happiness, with pleasure, and we should cherish the life. We should not run away from the challenges of life. Those people who try to commit suicide, those people who withdraw from the life and confine to themselves, that is not the path. The path is that we should celebrate life and live for 100 years. But keeping in view what was stated in the previous mantra, that is what it says, that we do not excessively consume resources, do not get attached to the resources, and in that way, we should try to live for 100 years. So we have to take care of our health. We have to take care of the environment's health, which is nurturing us. The nature which nurtures us should be looked after. We cannot destroy the nature. The modern science, and particularly the Western approach of conquering nature, is the most devastating theory which has been brought in by the Western world. Conquering nature means that you destroy the nature, you imprison the nature. Now, how can you do that? The nature is nurturing us. Firstly, nature is very powerful. You cannot conquer it. It's not possible. Secondly, nature nurtures us. The air we breathe in comes from nature. The water we drink comes from nature. The habitation we live in comes from nature. The clothing we wear comes from nature. So everything we need in life, they come from nature. Nature nurtures us, nature sustains us, and therefore we cannot use excessive resources from the nature, because the resources do not belong to us, they belong to the Supreme. So keeping that in mind, we live for 100 years. That is what has been prescribed. We desire to live for 100 years, that we desire to live a maximum period of life we can live. In that period, we should not withdraw from life. We should do whatever is necessary to do, but keeping what was stated in the first verse in mind. Now, the second part here is that you have to keep working. Without working, you cannot live. Now, this is another keyword here. The first keyword is living up to 100 years. Second is we have to keep working. Now, working has been explained in detail in chapter 3 of Bhagavad Gita, where Lord Krishna said that nobody can stay without working even for a moment. बिना कर्म किए कोई भी व्यक्ति एक क्षण भी नहीं रह सकता. This is what he said. And that is what this mantra is saying, that you desire to live for 100 years, but you should keep working. Working what? Working means discharging your prescribed duties. The duties which are required to be done to maintain yourself, to maintain the family you are living with, you should continue to do those activities without attachment. So you discharge your duties to the world, to your own self, and then aspire to live for 100 years. So this is the message in this first part of this second mantra. Now, it also talks about na karm lipyate nare, that how the karma should not bind you. The karma should not bind you if you perform them in a non-attached way. If you do not get attached to the outcome of the karma, if you do not aspire to attain a particular outcome, you do not regard yourself as the doer, then the karma will not impact you, and you can live without the karma binding you for 100 years. So, this one verse uh, contains many messages. The first message, that you should not withdraw from the life, you should try to live full life, you should celebrate life, and while celebrating life, you should not use excessive resources, you should not get attached to the resources. Then you should perform your prescribed karma, because performing your karma is your duty, and those karmas should be performed in non-attachment way, and you should not treat yourself as the doer, as Lord Krishna said in chapter 3 of Bhagavad Gita. If you perform the karma in this way, then none of these karmas will bind you and take you to the next birth. Now, I want to go back to Bhagavad Gita, a few verses, to explain the meaning of this mantra in detail. Because this mantra contains the core message, but it is actually a coded message. It is not a message which is very explicit. So we have to go into a few verses of Bhagavad Gita to understand it better. Now we go to chapter 3 of Bhagavad Gita, and we go to first verse number 5. First verse number 5 says, Nahi kaschit shanmapi जातु तिष्ठ त्यक कर्म कृत कार्यतः वस कर्म सर्व प्रकृति जैर गुण। निसंदेह कोई भी मनुष्य किसी भी काल में क्षण मात्र भी बिना कर्म किए नहीं रह सकता। कोई भी मनुष्य किसी भी काल में क्षण मात्र भी बिना कर्म किए नहीं रह सकता। So even if when we sleep, when we eat, when we talk, when we walk, these are all karmas we are performing. Because the entire human community is bound to perform those acts which are given to him by propensity of the nature. मनुष्य समुदाय प्रकृति जनित गुणों द्वारा परवश हुआ, ही इज नॉट इन हिज ओन कंट्रोल, परवश हुआ, कर्म करने के लिए बाध्य किया जाता है। द नेचर कंपेल्स हिम टू डू द एक्शन अकॉर्डिंग टू द नेचर given to him. So we cannot escape karma. That is what mantra 2 of Ishavasya Upanishad says. Every second we are performing some karma, but we should perform that karma without attachment, without any expectation of an outcome, and without the doership. Then verse number 6 of chapter 3 of Bhagavad Gita, किंतु हे अर्जुन, जो पुरुष कर्म से इंद्रियों को वश में करके अनासक्त हुआ, समस्त इंद्रियों द्वारा कर्म योग का आचरण करता है, वही श्रेष्ठ है। So this is the explanation which Lord Krishna has given in detail of what has been mentioned in the mantra number 2 of Ishavasya Upanishad. Then further explanation. तू शास्त्र विहित कर्तव्य कर्म कर, क्योंकि कर्म न करने की अपेक्षा कर्म करना श्रेष्ठ है, तथा कर्म न करने से तेरा शरीर निर्वाह भी सिद्ध नहीं होगा। एंड देन वन लास्ट मंत्रा, यज्ञ के निमित्त किए जाने वाले कर्मों के अतिरिक्त दूसरे कर्मों में लगा हुआ मनुष्य ही कर्मों से बंधता है। So we have to perform our duties like yajna. This is what this mantra says. When do we convert that yajna? That we do our karma as a duty, not as an expectation. that this is what I am supposed to do, this is my duty, I should discharge that function. And I am not the doer, I have been sent here in this world to perform this particular duty. And I am doing it because I am being compelled by the Supreme and by the nature. So if we think that way and perform our karma, then we will not be bound by those fruits of those karma. That is what limpanti, the word which says that they will not remain attached to you. Limpanti basically means when you put a hand in water, the water gets attached to your hand. When you put your hand in the sand gets attached to your hand. But when you put your hand in the akash doesn't get attached to your hand. So limpanti means that which things get attached to you. So if we don't want to get limpanti, it basically means that we should not be considering ourselves as the doer. So the second part of this mantra is evam tyavi nanyatyastu na karm lipyate nare. That if you perform your duties in this particular way, then the actions will not bind you and you will remain liberated. So these two verses, two mantras, they explain what we call Gyan Nistha and Karm Nistha, or Gyan Yoga and Karm Yoga. In these two mantras is contained. Now, the third mantra. Now, these three mantras fall into one category. The third mantra is that if you do not follow all this, which has been mentioned in mantra number 1 and 2, then what happens to you? That is what the third mantra says. Asurya nam te loka andhen tam savrata. That if you do not follow the prescribed path as described in mantra number 1 and mantra number 2, then what is called? You are called killer of the soul. Whoever may be must enter into the planets known as the worlds of faithless, full of darkness and ignorance. Asurya naam ke loka, those lokas, those places where there's total darkness, there's no sunlight, no light. Tamsavrata, andhen tamsavrata. You live in total darkness like a andha admi, like a man who has no vision. And tamsa is all the time darkness. So if you do not follow these two paths, or I would say the combination of the two paths, that you must understand that the Supreme pervades the entire universe. You can use the resources as per your necessity, as per your requirement. Don't misuse them because they do not belong to you. Living that way, you should desire to live for 100 years, perform all your karma without attachment, without doership, then your life is in the right direction. But if you do not do any of those things, then this third mantra comes into play. Then you will be sent to Asurya Naam ke Loka, that you will be sent to those places where there is total darkness. You live like a blind man, andhen, tamsavrata, covered with total darkness. So you are sent to those kind of places where you live in total darkness. There is no knowledge, there is no, good or sattvic karma you can perform. And then it says, you are Atmahanta, you are killing yourself. By doing this, you are your own killer. There's a very interesting word which has been used here. that आत्मा का हनन करने वाला, हम्म, चात्महनोजना, atmhanojana, that you are killing your own self, own soul. If you behave like that, then you are the killer of the soul. Now, killer of the soul is a very devastating word which has been used, because soul is the part of Paramatma, the universal consciousness. If you are killing that, means you are actually killing the Supreme. You are abusing the Supreme. You are misusing that. And therefore, that is why this mantra is very harshly worded, that you will be sent to those kind of places where there's total darkness, total ignorance, and total, you will live like a blind man. So that will lead you to Atmahanan, that you will be killing your own self. You are destroying your own life. You are you are like, doing a suicide for yourself. So this is the third mantra, the killer of the soul, the Atmahanta. If you if you do that kind of, if you do not follow the first two verses, then you are automatically into this category, and you will be leading a very, very despicable, very, very undesirable life after that, which will be full of darkness, full of uh, you know what you call ignorance, complete ignorance, no knowledge at all. So these three verses, they provide you the core message of life, how we should live, the core message of life. Now, this has been explained in great detail in Bhagavad Gita, because these three mantras are not easy for everyone to understand in complete detail. Even the Bhashya provided by uh, Shankaracharya does not give that detailed, explanation of these mantras. But I found that these three mantras have been explained in great detail in Bhagavad Gita in variety of ways. And the 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 second chapter talks about the Jnana Yoga. The third chapter talks about the Karma Yoga, and then subsequently he talks about how people are killing themselves by not following this path. So we should live comfortably, but we should make our life a yajna. And life can be yajna only when we perform the action in such a way that we are not considering ourselves a doer, we are not having that ego, and then we are doing it all for the sake of the Supreme, as prescribed by Him. So these three mantra fall into one category, that how we should lead our life in this world. So this is the first message. Now, I don't want to start the second part of the Upanishad today, because the mantra 4, 5, 6, and 7, they talk about the Supreme. They talk about uh, how to describe the Supreme, which has been also mentioned briefly in chapter 15 of Bhagavad Gita. When Bhagavad Gita talks about, how this world expands and becomes, we remain enchanted, and then what the Supreme is all about. So, but here it has been described in greater detail. So we will go into that subsequently in the next session, because these mantras are interconnected. Uh, and I think if we start today, we won't be able to finish all those mantras. because each mantra has many important keywords and we have to understand all those keywords properly. So we can try the first mantra number 4 today, and we will, you know, uh, what we'll do, we'll revise it again when we go to mantra number 5. So it says that Parmeshwar Achal, that he is fixed, Anejat. Anejat means he is fixed, he doesn't move anywhere, he is without any movement. Ekam, he is one, all united, there is no division in that. He is without mind, Manash, and he moves faster than anything can move. Now, these are contradictions which we have seen earlier, that he is fixed in completely in one place, not one place, the whole universe, he is fixed in the whole universe. But he moves faster than anything else. Anything can move. He moves faster than the mind, because we know mind is the fastest moving object in our experience in life, but he moves faster than that. He is one, he is not two, he is not divided in any respect. Hmm? Anej, anej dekam manso javiya, nen devva anu anu van purva marsat. That even the goats cannot reach him. He moves so fast that goats cannot reach him. Those who are running, they can never reach him. He is that fast. He is surpassing everything. Eh, And now the let's read the English meaning first. Although fixed in his abode, the Supreme is swifter than the mind and can overcome all other running things. The powerful Devtas cannot approach him. Although in one place he controls those who supply the air and rain, he surpasses all in excellence. Now, there are many, many words here which we need to see, that he is fixed, but he is moving and moving faster than anything which you can imagine, faster than the mind. And the goats, the devtas, cannot reach him. That is why there is a verse in Bhagavad Gita, which we examined earlier, that he said, Lord Krishna said, that even the goats cannot understand me because they all came after me. Hmm? The rishis, the saints cannot understand me because they came all after me. So he is the origin of everything. The Supreme is the origin of everything. And therefore, whatever came after him, they cannot understand his existence. Like if we want to understand uh, the birth of our grandfather, we cannot understand. He was born, we only hear about it. That this was his father, this was his mother, he was born in this and this place, but we cannot really experience that birth. That's not possible. It's only accepting the words of others, not without experiencing it. The same is the case in case of the Supreme. We cannot understand the Supreme, even the goats cannot understand him, but we have to accept the words that yes, he is the first one, and then the goats came, and then the saints came, and then the humanity came. That's how it is. And he controls all those who control all the natural forces. The examples given here is the air and the rain, and only two, because they have, you know, conveyed that all the natural forces, whether it is the earth which holds us, whether it is the water, whether it is the air, whether it is the akash, is all controlled by the Supreme. It is under his supreme control. And he is surpassing everybody in excellence. Excellence means he is sarvagya. He is omniscient. His knowledge is supreme knowledge. There is nobody who can have more knowledge than him. So he is omniscient. In the first verse, they talked about omnipresent, that is pervading the entire universe. Here they are talking that he is omniscient. He is sarvagya. In Sanskrit we call it, he knows everything. All the knowledge originates from him. He is the mool source, or he is the primal source of knowledge. All the knowledge is there in him. And he is controlling all the natural forces, the nature, and whatever forces we see in this universe. He is stable in one place, but he is moving faster than anything else can move in this universe, including the mind, which we experience moves very fast. So he moves faster than mind while being stable, and he is controlling all the natural forces. Even the gods cannot understand him, and he is the source of all knowledge. He excels in excellence in every respect. Now, this is the first verse describing the God. This is the second part of this Upanishad. It has not been divided into parts, but the first three mantra tell us the way how we should live in this world. In this mantra onwards, they talk about the Supreme and his qualities and how he controls the universe. So we will examine this in further detail with the next mantras. So Ishavasya Upanishad is, I would say, is core, is a coded message which gives us key to the life, how we should live. And that explanation has been given in Bhagavad Gita for our understanding. So if we mix the two together, Isa Upanishad and Bhagavad Gita, I think we get the core message of a good living, of a living which is meaningful and which is not binding for next birth, which will also liberate us, which will provide us the moksha, so that we don't have to circle again and again in this sansar. So this is what we will conclude here today, just to recapture the few important messages. That is, first thing, we must accept that the Supreme is pervading the entire universe. All that we see in this universe is superimposed on him. Without him, nothing is possible. That is the first thing. Secondly, we should not misuse the resources. We should use only as much as we need for our needs. We should not get attached to the natural resources in any way. The wealth, we should not become greedy. We should not accumulate wealth and resources, and because they do not belong to us. And then we should aspire to live a full life. We should not run away from life. We should not think of suicide. We should not withdraw from life. We should live a full life, healthy life, and in this life we should perform all the karmas which we are required to perform as a duty. These karmas should be performed in such a way that they are not attached, we are not attached to the karma. And that is possible when we perform them as duty. not with certain expectations, and not the with the you know notion that I am the doer. If we do not do this, then we will be Atmahanta, we will be our own killer. And we will be sent to those lokas, those places which are full of darkness, where you will have no knowledge and you will live like a dark man, live like a blind man. So, in order to avoid all that, we should follow this path of Ishavasya Upanishad. The first two mantras prescribe that path, the Gyan Marg and the Karm Marg, and the third mantra tells us that if we don't follow, what would be the consequences. And as we understood, these have been explained in greater detail in Bhagavad Gita. So this is what uh, uh, we should take as a core message of how to live our life. Thank you.